Hi, welcome to the Recovery Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Abbasi. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and stroke survivor, and I must show you that Autumn is behind me. She looks very regal there. For those of you who are looking at the video, she is representing right now beautifully. Hi, honey. Kissy. Okay. Yes, she's so cute. She's so cute. Oh, she's looking at you guys now. Hello. Say hello to the audience. She's like, I don't know why you're talking to me. She's looking out the window. She's super adorable. Okay. But I'm going to move on. But I shall move on. So, what I wanted to talk about today is the idea that people do change. And I've talked about this before. I'm sure every topic I've talked about numerous times, but that's okay because it's this stuff that keeps coming back in our minds that I have to continue to remind myself that I can't change people, places, and things, but people, places, and things do change without me getting involved. And where the serenity and the acceptance all come into play there. So when when I was my entire life, really, and I was drinking my entire life, let's be honest. So, my entire life, I used to say, people don't change. Like, I said that about everybody who hurt me. People don't change. And the thing that I was completely oblivious of was that people do change. I just can't change them. And I think that was the frustrating part, that I wanted to change these people around me to make them be what I expected them to be. And that was just never going to happen. What I needed to be doing was focusing on myself and how nothing can change in my life unless I change. And that change is possible with the tools that I've been given in this program. Acceptance being one of the first, that I needed to accept this idea that I didn't have control. You know, it's the serenity prayer. Accept the things that I cannot change. And I didn't even know where to start with that. If you would have just handed me the serenity prayer and said, "Okay, this is going to change your life," it wouldn't have. Like, I needed the steps of my program to understand what that all meant. What lack of control meant, what how to create lasting change in my life, that I was going to need to take action on myself and what was going on between my ears in order for any change to happen anywhere. So when I was drinking, I was always seeking peace and quiet. Like, there's a complete difference for me between peace and serenity. And when I was drinking, I wanted peace and quiet. I wanted to quiet down all of the chaos in my head. I wanted to silence that inner critic that was just constantly telling me what was wrong with me and what was wrong in my life. I wanted to silence even that part of me that was that was crying out that people don't change. I needed to redefine my entire core beliefs and stop focusing outward on that idea that people don't change. I had a fixed mindset, and there was nothing that was going to change that unless I changed. Um, and I had a real fear of accountability, looking inward and thinking that, like, so I had this inner critic, and I feared that looking inward was just going to make that be like torture. That inner critic was just going to be like, yeah, you do totally suck. But looking inward in the way that the 12 steps tells me to do, like step 4, um, I wasn't, it's not about looking at every place that I've screwed up. When I'm doing step 4, which coincidentally I'm working on step 4 right now, um, with my sponsor, I will be. I'm doing the work so that I can meet with her and talk about it. But it's not about looking at my relationships and then being like, okay, this is where I screwed this up. Like it says we're looking at our role, but it's not where did I screw this up? It's what happens in my environment that causes these unhealthy reactions. And those unhealthy reactions play a role in my relationships. And looking at that, like actually shining the light on it and seeing what needs to change. What are my unhealthy habits? What are the things that I repeatedly do and are damaging to not only the relationships, but are damaging to myself? That's feeding that inner critic. That's what the step 4 is doing. That peace and quiet that I'm seeking when I'm drinking is just ignoring all of that and creating like emotional isolation, and I'm just becoming stagnant in my life. I'm not growing, I'm not going anywhere. So when I was able to reach that point where enough was enough, and I was going to die if something didn't change. It went from um in earlier drinking, it went from I'm just beating myself up and my inner critic is getting louder and all of these things to getting to the point where no amount of alcohol was silencing that anymore. And I was just constantly depressed. I was constantly trying to quiet down that that all that noise in my head, and it became some a more of a drone that never went away, like this deep droning hum that I could never make go away. The pain of staying in that place far outweighed at that point the fear of changing. Sorry, I'm trying to pick I always am trying to pick my words very carefully. Um and that desire, I used the word eclipse yesterday in my Facebook post. That that fear of change wasn't so scary when the alternative was to die. And that was my willingness. Um, sorry, my phone just started talking. Um, so that was the pivotal point. And as ugly as that looked, that was what willingness was for me. So my phone keeps trying to talk to me. Sorry. Only here. That's where that happens. So once I had the willingness, then I was able to start exposing myself to change, to how to change, exposing myself to the easier, softer way. I thought drinking was the easier, softer way. It was just ignoring things, it was just covering everything up, hiding under a blanket. Like that was the easier, softer way, is putting myself under a blanket. But it turns out that once I was introduced to these different things, like meeting with my sponsor and her saying, how does that make you feel? What was your experience? And then hearing her say back to me, yeah, that happened to me too. So matter of factly, like, yeah, yeah, that totally happened to me too. I'm like, wait, what? You're telling me that you feel that way too? I thought that I was the only one who ever felt that way. I mean, how much ego is that, to think that I was the only one who ever experienced that thought? And then I was exposed to the serenity prayer, acceptance to change the things I can. Wait, change the things I can. That means that I can change. I can change things in my life. I didn't know I could do that. I thought, like I said yesterday, that I was the stuff around me was what was impacting my happiness, and there was nothing I could do about it. Um, but it turns out that I can accept some of the things that actually can't be changed, but there's a bunch of stuff that can be. And I started learning from the steps how to decipher between the two. I also, after about a year and a half of sobriety, I feel like it was about that long, I started to understand the word serenity, just like the promises say. And I'm like, now this feeling, this serenity, that is completely different than peace and quiet. That is peace and quiet is shutting down shutting down the world around me. It's isolating myself from the world. That's what peace and quiet was for me when I was drinking. Serenity is having that feeling of peace and quiet, yet I'm standing right in the middle of the chaos. And I am exuding peace and quiet. It's not blocking the world. It's actually exuding that feeling and being able to make an impact on the world around me by having that coming out of me, if that makes sense, instead of escaping from all that is around me so that I can isolate myself into peace and quiet. I am engaging and making, in my world at least, spreading serenity a little bit, letting other people know that it's possible. And this is how I did it. So looking at looking at it that way for me meant that I had to stop focusing on what was going on around me and start like looking under the hood, if you will, and accepting reality exactly how it is. That's the first action, is accepting reality the way that it is. I am an alcoholic, and and that's just the way that it is. That's the cards you've been dealt. And after having my stroke, same thing. Um, and it took me a long time. It took a couple years for, I guess, 3 years for me to get to the point where I was accepting reality just as it was, that I had a stroke and I am disabled. And I remember clearly over this year, um, getting to that point where I'm like, okay, I get it. I am accepting that this is it. This is what has happened in my life, and I can't be passive about it. I need to take action and participate, engage. I need to not try to escape from what has happened to me, but I need to engage with the world exactly as it is. And that acceptance began to dismantle all of the denial that I had been in. And I still am challenged with it. Sometimes I get a little excited and spend a little too much time looking at my phone or looking at the computer. And uh, that is denial at work when I'm doing that. And when I can say, no, Rachel, remember, accept reality just as it is. And you have reached the point where you should not be doing this. This is not healthy for you. And when I do that, when I acknowledge, okay, this is one of those things that you can't change, then I shut down my computer or my phone, and that frees up energy for joy, for happiness, for doing things that I enjoy doing. And some of the tools that help me practice that acceptance are saying it out loud, like doing this podcast, going to meetings and sharing, listening to other people practice acceptance, and doing those mindfulness check-ins. I don't like to necessarily say mindfulness. I think mindfulness is overused lately. But anyway, it's doing those check-ins to look at, how am I doing? Am I prioritizing my recovery, my well-being right now? And if I'm not, accept that I got to give up whatever it is that I'm doing that's not good for me. So there's a lot of rewiring that has to be done, but it can be done. I can change, and I'm changing every day as long as I remain willing to prioritize my recovery. And when I repeatedly practice doing this, I am restructuring my behavioral scaffolding, if you will. Like, the more I go to meetings, the more that I being of service to others, the more that I'm practicing my healthy routines, doing small, repeatable actions, the more it is getting ingrained in me that neuroplasticity takes over, and I'm creating new behaviors. I'm creating new trains of thought, and that is change. That is change at its best. That we literally, scientifically, we can change. Neuroplasticity is proof that we can change. So I can't tell you how wrong I was, saying that all those years that people can't change. I just have to be willing, and accept some of the things around me that don't change in order to recognize for anything to change, it has to change in me. I need to make the progress, I need to continue to l- demonstrate that people change, talk about how people change so that other people can start looking, inward and being like, okay, I get it. Look what she did. That's what happens in the program. I listen to what other people are doing to change their own lives. And there is no better way to grow than to grow with other people and share our experiences, strength, and hope to show how we change together. Um, so the only thing that I don't change these days is my bedtime and my morning meeting. Actually, I would say my bedtime even changes, but my morning meeting at 7 a.m., that's the only thing that I'm not willing to change because it's what gets me going. It's what gets me with the right frame of mind. That is one of those small, repeatable actions that that began my recent journey in recovery, like being able to have one dependable, unchanged thing in my life. And that is showing up for my program and being committed to growth, to my own growth. So that's what I've got for you today. People do change. You can change, but it takes work. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of freaking acceptance and willingness and all that good stuff. And it's a tiny little bit at a time. So tiny, so tiny. But after 9 years, tomorrow, anniversary is tomorrow. After 9 years, those little tiny changes add up to be something absolutely life changing and huge. I mean, my life is so different now than it was before, and it just started with willingness and acceptance. That was it. And commitment. So thank you. I'll stop babbling. Thank you for showing up today for yourself and for me, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.